Janelle, what the hell? You got us out here looking bad. Not on my watch. Let's get in and ready to love y'all. Welcome, beautiful people. It's your girl Tammy, and we are back for another episode of Ready to Love. This is episode 9, and this is the retreat, y'all. So Lee, Kat, and Aries are riding together on their way to this random house. Chris, Marie, Quint, and Phil are riding together, and Janelle, Sierra, and Jessica are riding together. And per usual, they're on the road in Dallas traffic, child. Get into the retreat and having their little conversations. The ladies are talking about shoring up their connections and getting to know people more. And the fellas are sort of doing the same. Again, though, this is just like, the little opener that they always do. I have to personally say, why was Kat here? Not just was always Kat here, but also why was Sierra here? I kind of know why Sierra was here. But again, why was Kat here? That's going to be my theme for this entire review. I just don't understand Ready to Love in how they playing in our face with these connections. Like, this is supposed to be at the retreat. I feel like this is a moment when we're supposed to have people that genuinely have connections connecting. And let's see if that works isolated from the group situation. It just definitely felt like production was setting everybody up. And they knew that they were going to put certain people in places where they wanted them to they know they don't get along. So they wanted them to like have a powder keg. And that's exactly what happened. But it just didn't make any sense. She had no real connections to me throughout this, and even mentioned multiple times that she was trying to start something. And you can't really start something now that we at the house, baby. This is the time for people to sort of isolate even more and figure out if this is the person for you. So only people that should have been on these retreat were people who had real, true, multiple connections, or were down to their one connection that's still here, and they're trying to see if this thing is going to work or somebody going to go home by themselves. But, they decided to play in our face, and the ladies are talking, and they're talking about shoring up connections. And, Kat is saying that she wants to try to reconnect with the men because it didn't work out with Phil. And of course, Herbert is gone, who I feel like low key should have been here, because even though Herbert was working a nerve, we're trying to be Mr. Smooth Operator, I have to say he is far more humorous than Kat would have been. And I think him and Sierra would have been a hoot on this trip. So per usual, y'all, Ready to Love got us in this janky Airbnb. I really want to say, Ready to Love production on put some more money into the budget. It's embarrassing. It really is, for the ways in which y'all will rent these janky Airbnbs with these. I don't know if they had like Dollar Tree lace curtain. It just was giving the cheapest of the cheap. Why are we doing a mixer house for the retreat? This should feel like somewhat of a semi-beautiful, location, oasis, something. We can't do Puerto Rico. We can't do like a little mini trip. We got to put people in this little tight house for the weekend off in the woods where love somebody could kill you just to see if they get along. Ready to Love, I need y'all to put it together. It was definitely giving house party reboot vibes. So everybody's arriving in the house and sort of shoring up their areas. Everybody's trying to figure out what bed they're going to sleep in. And the fellas arrive first. And so we have Marie, Chris, Quint, and Phil that arrive first. And they're sort of looking around the bedrooms. And I want to say, Chris was already dividing people up into who will be with where, honey. He's already saying he's with Lee. And that was a shocking question mark to me, because that basically shows us that Phil already beat him out for the spot. I mean, honestly, let's be real. Aries probably checked out when that ex said servitude. And she played it off just a little bit better than Jessica did, but ultimately wasn't feeling Chris either. And it's clear that her and Phil are just a better match. They literally have just more grown vibes. I don't think Aries want to be a mama to 3 boys. She already has 2, and Chris would have been a 3rd son. So it's clear that they are connecting. I don't know, this Chris Lee thing feels so late in the game, but Lee don't speak above an octave, honey. So I guess that'll work for him. And so everybody arrives at the house. The next people to come are the other set of ladies, which is going to be Lee, Kat, and Aries. And honey, when I tell you, when Aries walked in at space, Phil's face lit up. He was completely in. He's like, where's my baby? And they just feel like a genuine couple at this point. I don't even think she noticed Chris was there. So when Chris said connections, I was like, connections with an S, because she didn't even acknowledge you, bro. It was clear that Aries was there for Phil and Phil was there for Aries. And, the sparks were jumping. The fellas go grab the ladies' luggage. They start having like little mini conversations and just sort of showing them around the house. Um, it was a cute little arrival scene. And then, of course, the next set of ladies pull up to the house. And while they're showing people around, I ask again, why was Kat here? This was embarrassing throughout the episode, just to see her try to have these like fake connections with the men. Honey, at one point, she's on the balcony with Marie and she's saying that they got to connect and link. And Marie's like, yeah, we've talked for a little bit. Maybe we can see where this goes or if there's anything going on. And she's like, we could have a little hideaway time together. And Marie is just like, I really just want to see about getting in that shower that's in this room. Like, that man could care less that she was there. It was more so like they were trying to do her a solid. And girl was like 70s. They were trying to do her a solid jive turkey, but she really just didn't make any sense in the home. I think Kat's beautiful. I think she has a lot to offer. I don't think her match was here. And honestly, I feel like production wanted to light the match between her and Janelle, and that's why she's at the house. Chris also didn't have multiple connections, but we know that Jessica and him don't match up. What we find out here is that really him and Aries don't match up, and Aries don't care. And, he's trying to make something happen with Lee. And so I guess that's the connection that they have. But wholeheartedly, it didn't make a lot of sense. Kat was also supposed to be on Chris's radar, but Kat is also outspoken. So how was she going to be on Chris's radar? Because I doubt she was going to do that low talking voice, making sure I never offend you situation either. I don't know, y'all. It just felt a little fake with some of the connections of people that they had come this weekend that really didn't have no reason to be there. So Tommy shows up for his check. Because when I tell you that was the most random ride through, and let me go on and slip out after this. And so he lets them know this is why they're here. The weekend is about them getting to know each other, to have a good time, show up their connections, figure out where they're not working. When I tell you this was the most, I'm just here so I won't get fined energy I have ever seen. And as soon as Tommy slipped in, he slipped on. And once Tommy's gone, that's when the liquor starts flowing. And that's when you knew it was going to be a problem, honey. When I saw that Hennessy bottle sitting on top of there next to that vodka, I was like, they're going to Grey Goose it out and it's going to be a problem. And sure enough, it was. But they cheers to the weekend and cheers to having fun. Sierra says, look, this is ready to love, not ready for kids. So let's just keep it cool. But when Tommy mentioned previously that it was going to be 6 women to 4 men, I said, oh, get ready for Lord of the Flies. Now, honey, we were not shocked to see Quint at that barbecue, although pleasantly surprised and excited, honey, because the chest be chesting. But anyway, why were we not shocked to see Quint at the barbecue? I expect a Cuba to do nothing but be on that barbecue, honey. I'm not even sure I trust it. It was either going to have to be Q or it was going to be Marie with them Uncle Sandals. But one of the two is who I would have only trusted on the barbecue when it comes to a cookout. If you know, you know. Quint, of course, out here being top naked, trying to give us all he got and show us his chesticles. And certainly Aries was kind of low-key eyeing it because she was sitting outside with Phil, but she was looking. Anyway, Kat walks out, and again, I just hate how they treating our girl. This giving Tequila vibes, when she knew she was going to be eliminated at the mixer. And so she tries to start meeting with the different men to try to shore up connections so that she doesn't get kicked off in the first episode. It just was giving desperation, like just coming around, having these random conversations with people, and you haven't had this connection. And when I tell you Quint could care less about that conversation more than he cared about barbecuing that chicken, it just was giving down bad, disrespectful. He was very pleasant to her, not in his demeanor, but just in the fact that it felt so dry. It's like somebody that comes to you at work who you don't really like, and they start trying to talk to you, and you just sit giving one word answers. It was very much giving that. But then, Janelle comes out and, he's mine. You may have had him work. Girl, it was giving, this was my first Janelle, why sis? So they start talking, there's conversation. Janelle tries to make a light joke, but it's a little bit creepy and it gives a little cringy behavior. And they go to a green screen, and Kat says that, whenever she tries to talk to Quentin, Janelle is clingy. But let's be honest, sis, that can't possibly be the case because you talked to him at pickleball for that entire time, and Janelle was there with Herbert, and they didn't bother y'all, and there still wasn't no chemistry. So coming back to talk to him in front of the barbecue while we making sure he don't burn the chicken really wasn't going to spark anything up. We are at the house now. So at this point, people have kind of been communicating more and more. If it didn't happen back then, it's not going to happen now. And in fact, Janelle makes a comment. No, Kat makes a comment about Janelle, about Quint, and ask him, is he taken? And Janelle sort of answers like yes, and Quint says yes. If that wasn't the clue that he's just not that into you, I don't know what is. But it was also the clue that Janelle should have leaned the hell back, sis. You already won. This man said, I am claimed. It is by the girl sitting next to you. You should have just walked away on some cool breeze stuff. Trying to reinforce and do all of the extra just made you look sad. Now, y'all know by now, my favorite part of this is hearing and talking and listening to y'all. So don't forget to drop a comment below. Let me know what you think of the video and let me know what you think of the episode. And let's get back into it. Okay, so we get another moment with Quint and Janelle, and they're sort of sitting down now. Quint's put on a shirt, and they're having a conversation about, where they stand and how they feel about each other. And Quint is in, Janelle is in. They're very much telling us, hey, we feel like a couple already. I feel like it's just natural. I'm not trying to see nobody else. And, we've been hearing this now, I think like the last 2 or 3 episodes. This man is clearly in with this woman, and this woman is clearly in with this man. Sometimes in these moments, I wonder if it's best for people to eliminate, but I guess you don't really have to, because the whole point of Ready to Love is that couples will stay to the end that are coupling. But I think that's also why by the time we get to the house, we honestly just need to have the people that have true connections here. Whether or not people, may still have a light feeling. To me, Marie, at least he had a cool, it was noticeable back and forth between Jessica and Sierra, but it's clear that Janelle and Quint are a thing. It's clear that Aries and Phil are a thing. These two connections are genuine. To me, the other connections just feel like we're playing around. We got to have extra people at the house. If y'all gonna do that, at least just keep the funny people there. So it's a little bit more exciting and a little less volatile. So I want to talk in my whisper voice because I know Chris don't like anybody that speaks a decibel above him. So we basically have Chris and Lee in the house, and we're realizing that there's been some sort of random connection between them, or maybe they've had 1 or 2, outings and dates. And, Lee doesn't speak a little louder than Chris, so we know that there's not going to be any issue. Chris says he enjoys a go-getter, and, he likes Lee and what she represents, and she's not trying to dominate, and he enjoys that. And all I could say is Lee needs to run for the hills. But maybe not, because maybe this fits in her mode. Chris don't want anybody that he feels like is, speaks slightly higher than him. And, Lee seems to be interested in sort of being a homebody. I assume that he knows that about her and is comfortable. Look, honey, there's a lid for every pot. But I have to say, I do feel like this feels disingenuous, and it also feels like it probably won't last. Mainly because I don't think Chris's only issue is if you speak louder than his Michael Jackson voice. I genuinely feel like there's an issue with ambitious women. And I don't see Lee as somebody who is going to be comfortable or cool with being less than simply to make Chris feel better about himself. So y'all, everybody's sort of kicking it at the table and having conversation, and finally they're going to get to eat, or at least I thought they was going to get to eat this food that Quentin been cooking on the barbecue. It feel like it's been going on forever at this point. Maybe 55 chicken wings shouldn't have been going at once. But everybody's sitting down having a seat. The ladies are sitting down, and Marie comes and sits next to Jessica. But Sierra's been feeling some sort of way, and she told us a little bit earlier in the episode that she hasn't been feeling Mario make the efforts to really connect with her. He's pretty much her only connection in the house at this point. And she wants to see if there's something more than the homie friend vibes. And so she feels like Mario hasn't been putting in the same time that he's been putting in with Jessica, and she's feeling some sort of way. So when Mario has a seat next to Jessica, before Jessica even can get out a hello, Sierra says, come scoot by me and have a chit chat with me. I want to talk with you. Jessica Face was not feeling that, and understandably so. It feels like a little weird to have somebody like pull somebody away while you're about to start a conversation. But Sierra really wants to get out how she feels about their situation and wants to know straight up, where are we at? And honestly, I think it's because she felt like if this is not going to be a thing, I could go ahead and go, because she said she already had the Louis packed. So when I tell you it was a conversation about nothing, but a little bit of something at the same time, I don't even know if that's completely possible, but it certainly was in this situation. Sierra then, proceeds to tell Marie that the reason she wanted to pull him away to have the conversation is because she wants to talk about his lack of effort. She does not feel like he puts in the effort to get to know her on that more romantic or higher level and get personalized. Marie says, hold up. I do call you. You don't call back right away. I do put in effort, but you don't give that energy back. Marie says he wants to be pursued just as much as he's pursuing. Sierra kind of does step back and realizes she's not putting in the effort. She says she wants to be chased. She's not interested in having to reveal everything to a man. She wants a man to show up and show out. And he says, I don't mind showing up and showing out, but I need you to call me back if I do. So we kind of have this back and forth for a little while, and Sierra starts to contemplate whether or not she's putting in the real effort to make a considerable impact with Marie and see if they can move past the friend zone. So 18 hours later, it's now finally time to eat. And everybody's getting ready, getting their plates and stuff together. Everybody's in the kitchen, huddling around, moving aluminum foil, getting spoons in, except for Marie. Marie is seated at the table, and it is because our girl Jessica is making a plate for him. She's asking Marie what he wants to drink, and he's letting her know he's not having to get up and do anything. I actually thought this was kind of cute, and it was a cool way to sort of imply that everything was good with them and to sort of reassert that, hey, I'm also interested in you because, Jessica and Marie so far haven't spent but so much time together, and her time with him at the table was interrupted because Sierra wanted to have a conversation. So Marie is sitting there waiting to be served. I don't know, depending on his spiritual metaphysical situation, I don't know if he was going, I didn't see that he denied anything on that plate. But everything seemed to be in his Hotepian diet. But Jessica asks him what he wants. She gets his plate and they all have a seat at the table and they're eating. And per usual, Aries could care less if Chris is at the table. She really is only there for Phil. So after dinner, again, the liquor is flowing and they decide to play a question card game. Black people, why do we do this? Why do we know that card games traditionally do not end well for us once people are liquored up. It's not just this, it's spades, it's tonk, it's a bunch of different card games. They always end up in arguments, they always end up in fights. We just do not get along. But I have to say, this was one of the reasons, again, that I feel like the people that should have been there were people who were going to make the trip fun. And I mean that for people who didn't have maybe connections. If you're going to invite the non-connection person, this is why I think Herbert would have done really, really well, because Sierra was a ball of fun and she really was somebody who kept the entertainment going and the fun going in the house. I think Herbert would have been like that for the men and it would have been really fun to see. I would have rather have a fake link up with Sierra and Herbert than to have Kat there because she had no connections and they knew her and Janelle did not get along. And so it's just one of those things of waiting for there to be some type of blow up. And I would have rather this been a fun weekend, people sort of getting to see, where they are. So they start asking questions around the room. They ask questions about how you feel about body counts. They ask questions of, have you ever been in love? We do find out from Marie that he said he has never experienced love, or he doesn't think he's experienced love the way he thinks he would, which is very shocking because Marie has a whole baby mama out here. So it was interesting to see that he said he had this ex that I could have swore he told Sierra he was in love with her in the earlier episode, but that she wasn't. She was trying to get back with her ex. So I was like, was that not love, or was that love? It feels like he's contradicting himself. Sierra's answering, she's having a good time. And then they get down to the question that really is the powder keg for the drama that ensued. The shenanigans that went down was based on a question about, how do you feel about traditional values in households? And again, these questions are meant for the entire group or people in the entire group to answer. So it wasn't just directed at one person. They start off with it. There's like a little sideline where somebody's saying like, yeah, I do think like women can be more feminine and stuff. And, we could talk about that on another video, but I definitely think it felt like the blanket answer. And I feel like it feels like the answer that's happening based on TikTok and energy around these podcasts and not really based in reality for women. And I'm going to get into that in a minute. But I feel like, that was one of the answers. Like, yeah, I know how to be feminine. I know how to sit back. Women start trying out for the Olympics or letting you know that they're feminine, like we're not already women. And then it goes to Chris, and Chris says that he does think that traditionalism is messed up because he thinks that the man should be the head of the household. He should be the money maker. Women's place is not necessarily to do that. And he also thinks that, men are leaders and they're natural leaders, and that women are not natural leaders because they can be too emotional. When I tell you Aries and the side eye, and so many men in the room, including Maria and Phil, were like, what the hell is he talking about? And of course, there are women in the room who run their own businesses, who are entrepreneurs. I think the majority are almost entrepreneurs, except for a few. And, Jessica obviously has her own coffee business, and she's like, I don't think that that's accurate. Now, mind you, the questions is for everybody in the house. But once Jessica says that's not accurate, when I tell you Chris's face was so upset, and they go to his green screen and he proceeds to say that all Jessica wants to do is fight. How, sir, is it possible that she wants to fight simply because she does not agree with your ridiculous misogynistic view about how women should be in the world? And so Jessica says that that doesn't even matter. Like, at the end of the day, you're a couples, you're a partnership. Women have an ability to be able to lead. And as a CEO of a coffee company, you would expect that she would say that because she's a leader. It absolutely made no sense. And it just really solidified what I've been saying about Chris the entire time. I want us to reflect a bit more on the previous episode and also send all prayers and love to Chris's exes. But I want to touch more on the topic that they had regarding the women in power and traditionalism when it came to Chris. One of the things that has been very clear from the beginning, or at least slowly after, once Chris connected with Jessica, is that he clearly just has a lot of issues around any woman that is in authority, or any woman who wants to succeed or have ambition past him. It was incredibly disappointing to see someone who really wants his wife or his partner to diminish themselves to just serve him. We learned that from his ex when they met the exes a couple of episodes ago. And she basically talked about the fact that it felt like servitude. You're there to service him, you're there to pour into him. And there was no energy about him pouring back into you. No woman wants to deal with that. And I feel like Chris feels like a time waster, because he would be a time waster really for anybody in this household, because Chris clearly wants to be with a housewife. And there's nothing wrong with that. There are women who love being homemakers and love taking care of their families, and that is their pure joy in life. And Chris should seek one of those women, because she would have the energy to give him, because she doesn't have a full-time job outside of raising their children. What is annoying is to see men like this try to date women who are ambitious, who are CEOs, who are leaders in their field, and then try to diminish them or make their light shine less, or feel competitive with them or resentment when they succeed. What was ridiculous in that conversation to me is Chris said he loves a woman's ambition, but he just wants this softness. I hate when people try to gaslight women in those types of situations. We don't have to cosplay at femininity. We are women. It is natural for us. And we will naturally fall into a place of softness when we're given a place of safety to land. When we're not given that, that is when you see women who are abrasive or a bit extra, because they're not getting that. For some women, there are some additional issues in which they may need to sit down with a therapist here and there. Hey, Janelle. But other than that, there are most situations women will naturally melt into that position, because we're feeling safe and we're not feeling like we have to be abrasive or competitive with a man. It is clear that Chris does not want a woman who speaks higher than he does. I don't know how that's going to work out for him in reality, because he has a very low tone. And he really is offended by the idea that he can't be the provider only. And to me, that means that he probably isn't fully fleshed out as a guy in other situations, which why, as a Nigerian man, he is still single at this age. Because when I tell you marriage is not a game in the culture, and the fact that he does not, that he's still single, to me, I think the bells are going off that this misogyny is just not something that's playing with a lot of the women. I feel like Chris is the type of guy who would resent his wife if she made more than him. And he's one of those men he judges himself only by the ability to be a provider. But what happens if your wife ends up being a superstar in her field? What happens if she starts a hair company in the house, and she's just selling a little bit every year, and then all of a sudden her valuation after being on like Oprah's favorite things goes from 0 to 10 million, and she's making more than you. What happens when you're the one that's being introduced and not the one introducing? What happens is Chris will be resentful. What happens is that woman will suffer as a result of that, and what happens is she would hopefully move on, because he would never be happy if he can't be the brightest light shining. And of course, that did not sit well with Miss Janelle, honey. Of course, Janelle's an interior designer. She has her own business. She also has like a jewelry line, and she's a fashion influencer. And she's been doing that for a very long time. There are women in the room, that have their own businesses. Like I said, Jessica has a coffee business. Kat has 2 or 3 businesses, from my understanding. I think she has like a spa. And then you have Aries, who's like a top, performer in the tech field. You have Sierra, who's a stylist. Like, these women are CEOs. And so, Janelle sort of brings the argument that, hey, this is a weird scenario to have. Black women come up against a lot of things. We're, the largest field in entrepreneurship. We're doing our things. It sucks to think that if you have any ambition, it has to be squelched. And so they're sort of going back and forth in their opinion. And that's what a spirited conversation should look like. But it goes weird because Kat wants to interject and bring up her point. And Janelle feels like Kat is speaking over her. And then Kat feels like Janelle's not giving her the respect to be able to speak, and that she was silent when Janelle was speaking. And it just turned into the I'm speaking, you're speaking, I'm speaking, you're speaking. And it gets louder and louder and louder. And in the words of Sierra, it really did become Love and Hip Hop. It was just a weird scenario and situation. It very much gave Sheree and Marlo, it just got to be ridiculous. And at that point, it was very much let's exit stage left. So the convo did not go well. It started to go downhill. People separate to certain sides and start heading out, and everybody's going to bed for their routine. As everybody's heading into their routine, people are taking off makeup. They're going to get themselves ready and taking out their clothes for the next day. People are going to say goodnight to folks. Aries and Phil are saying goodnight. Janelle goes in to say goodnight to Quentin, and they get a little lovey-dovey time. And then Marie hop skips his behind over into Jessica's room, and Jessica's doing some night stretches before she goes to sleep. And when I tell you, Jessica was every bit not amused, because I think Marie honestly was trying to lay down with Jessica. I don't think he was just trying to have a conversation. I think he wanted to see if they could snuggle or sleep in the same bed together. And it was clear Jessica was not having it. She clearly was like, He's like, oh, so what time do you go to bed? And she said, right after I do my stretches, that's about the time I usually go to sleep. She said, what time do you, get up? He was like, I start my day at like 12, 11:30. And Jessica was like, that's not going to work for me. You know what I'm saying? That's not going to work for me. I definitely get up earlier than that. And it's here that I think we also see that their lifestyles maybe clash a little bit. I can't remember what they said Maurier did for a living, but I know that, like, even though Jessica's an entrepreneur and, runs her own business, I'm assuming that she gets up pretty early. And for some people, they want a mate that does similar things. That's why I thought that her and Chris were a better fit in the beginning, because I felt like they had that same like business mentality and energy going, and they felt more, to me, kinship than I see with her and Maurier. And it's clear that Jessica not feeling Maurier trying to be in that bed. So she dismisses him with a good night, and we go on to the next morning. And we wake up the next morning to Aries and Phil. I really love these two. I just genuinely feel their connection more. I'm glad that Aries left that situation with Chris and is really, really focused on her and Phil. I really hope that they end up being one of the success couples if it's meant to be. Sometimes Ready to Love a guy has worked up on these situations and they end up not working out, or we find out that people were really romantic till the end, and then it turns out by the time of the reunion, they ain't even together no more. So I'm really hoping that her and Phil are making it work. They seem very, very sweet and into each other. He's always checking on her. She genuinely seems giddy about him. And it's nice to see that light and airiness about their situation. No pun intended with Aries. After seeing Kat and Janelle catfighting downstairs the night before. It was just a breath of fresh air. And it reminds us that we're watching a show that's supposed to be about love. So overnight, we're hoping that cooler heads have prevailed. But if not, Lee has suggested that everybody come and join her for a step class. We know Lee's a personal trainer along with Quint. And she said, hey, I want y'all to get high energy. I want there to be positive energy. And I think, we get these endorphins going. We can bring back some of the peace that we first had when we started before that tense night. And so everybody's kind of all in for the most part. At least we feel like they are. We go into the studio and Lee is in her element. She's doing her thing. Quinn is super excited because this is what he does for a living. And everybody's kind of in it. People are kind of dropping off though at the end. If you notice, like Sierra has stopped at one point. She wasn't doing it no more. And Maury tried to keep up, but he stopped and he was breathing hard. And I don't even know if Janelle started. I think she did start to do it, but then she just wasn't into it. And I actually don't have a problem with that. I know some people feel or probably felt like, oh, she's just one more thing she doesn't want to do. But to be honest with you, I don't like forced socialization either. And I really don't enjoy doing workouts I don't like doing. Step class will really kick your behind if you've been there before. And it isn't for everybody. I don't know Janelle's level of activity or, if she just wasn't into it. I know, a couple years back, I took a step class and I started off with the lady. Don't laugh at me, y'all. I started off with the lady at the first 10 minutes. And I don't know why when I came into this step class, it was just me and this woman. And then like another girl joined us. It was like, one of those classes that just starts and whoever shows up, shows up. So there was only 3 of us in there. When I tell you this lady kicked my behind, it was a 30-minute class, y'all. So we had a break for 5 minutes because she needed to like switch out something with the music. And if we had only done the first 10 minutes, I was sweating. And I had been in the gym doing my thing and I still did not have it for the step class. When we went to break, I left. So I kind of identify with Sierra and Janelle sitting down and say, I'm going to sit this out because my fitness level ain't even here. You ain't about to have me on the floor ranting and raving and panting and asking for water. So overall, most people did engage in the step class. It was pretty cool. Lee kind of throws out like she wonders if Quint and Janelle are a connection because she does feel like, her and Quentin are both personal trainers, although she says she doesn't date personal trainers and she's not really into them. But she wonders if they would be a connection because since Quentin works out a lot and Janelle, I don't know if Janelle doesn't work out, but she doesn't do the level of intensity that Lee does. Would they be a good connection? I will say this. I think there is a large misconception about women who, like the fitness levels. I've seen slim women and women who work out with fat husbands. I've seen men who are, fit, who have curvy wives or have thicker wives. And I sometimes am thrown off by people who don't understand that opposites can attract and that people can get you into a certain fitness level. I know for many people, them being with their spouses what made them healthier or made them want to work out more. So it's quite possible that if they got together, Quint would inspire, her to maybe be more in the gym, especially because he's a personal trainer, so he's a motivator naturally. But it does raise the question as to whether or not, there are some things that would be different. So Tommy shows back up for his second check of the episode and really just a check-in. And of course, we know that, somewhere along this episode, we're getting to the end and he wants to sit down and see how people are feeling the situation. Of course, people are saying that they're not really feeling, some of the things that have happened on the weekend, but for the most part, they've gotten a good chance to know a lot of the women. And they've gotten a good chance to connect with them. They don't like the catfight energy, but they genuinely did enjoy the individuals that they're into. Chris says he now likes Lee. Sir, officially goodbye. You had weeks to get to know her. I saw that they had some type of online date where her and Chris kind of tried to connect, but I didn't see the connection. I didn't see the spark with them. But, Lee doesn't speak louder than Chris, so maybe that's where the connection lies, honey. Quint says he's into Janelle. Marie definitely lied to Tommy and said that he is still checking for Sierra and Jessica. And he also added Kat into the situation. And that is far past the truth because there is no connection with him and Kat. There's no connection with Kat and anybody. And in fact, Chris mentions that Kat is probably not for him, but he didn't want to eliminate her because it's a process and he wanted to go through the process. Y'all really are wasting her time. Kat could have been gone, been out, hanging out with Allie somewhere, being Alley Cat and going on with her life. The fact that they keep playing in this girl's face and going back and forth about whether or not they're connecting and they needed to keep her in the competition. Just say production asked her to come on the trip and that's what was up. But please stop playing in our face acting like you're trying to connect with this girl when y'all have solid connections that y'all have been spending more time with than Kat. It's just been sad to see overall. So they talk to Tommy about that and then they start telling Tommy about who they're not feeling. And they basically say that, they're not making as much of a connection with Kat. Like, it starts off interesting, but it really ends up not flowing. And they're worried about Sierra because she's a little too jokey and not necessarily they're sure if she's serious and if she's opening up the vulnerability chamber. Marius had multiple conversations with her about it over the episode, and he really does want to see her other side that isn't too much of just the friendship, funny friend. And many of the men have also expressed the same thing, which is a problem they had with Sierra previously. She said she was going to open up more, but her person is just really not here. But she was a joy to have on the trip. When I tell y'all, this is where I was with this trip. I was a little bit of Aries' face and I was a little bit of Janelle's face. Like, this elimination is annoying on multiple levels. I really hate when they do these like public eliminations where they decide to have somebody say out loud like who or shouldn't, who or who shouldn't be there. You know, they sit there with this like town square energy about like who's not the right person, and they have one of the guys come up and like stand next to Tommy. It's so annoying when they do that. I also think it's kind of humiliating because I do appreciate that when they eliminate these people, they put them on individual dates to be eliminated instead of having them have this like public stoning of where you're just not ready to love. So back at the public dismissal, they so dramatic with these endings. Pastor Maurier and Bishop Tommy are talking to Sierra and Jessica, who have been selected as the two who may be possibly not ready to love. Maurier explains that while people think Jessica's a great businesswoman and she's very, friendly and cool, she possibly combative, of which they then turn the camera to Chris because we know he the one that said that. And Jessica is on green screen after basically saying that, look, I could accept not being anybody's type or just being, not in the bottom. But what you're not going to do is call me combative. And I honestly really haven't seen where she's had this combative nature with him. I really think this man has gaslit this situation beyond epic proportions. We haven't even really seen her go at it. I could even see where they're saying that Janelle could be combative, but I don't see it with Jessica. It definitely is just Chris not liking anybody speaking above his Michael Jackson voice. Mario expresses what he's been expressing through the episode, that essentially everybody loves Sierra. She's really cool. She's very friendly, but they think she's a little too jokey and not vulnerable enough. We have this dramatic pause and ending. They scan the crowd. And then we're told slowly that one of them will be going home because they may not be ready to love. And that is the end of the episode. Y'all, this vacation was trash. I feel like it was so set up by production to cause a stir, when I think the stir could have really been focused more on the real genuine connections and people actually having their drama would have been built upon them, connecting or not connecting with real people. We didn't need I know you don't get along with this girl, so I'm bringing her to the house. She has no connections, but we're going to pretend like she does so that we can keep y'all in the space because we know that at some point y'all are going to be butting heads. It just was ridiculous. I was disappointed in Kat's behavior. I was disappointed in Janelle's behavior. I was pissed off that Herbert wasn't there because I think he would have brought additional comic relief. And overall, this season is starting to wear down, and we just need to go ahead and get to these last couple of episodes into the reunion because I am ready to move on from Dallas. Thank y'all for joining me for another one, and I will see you in the next episode.